So, good evening, everyone. Good evening, good morning from whatever part of the world you are joining in. Thank you so much to start with GDG means community to give me opportunity to present what I know, what I have learned about dependency injection and services in Angular. Uh, mm, the whole purpose of next 45 minutes is to make sure that when you go out after those 45 minutes, you really understand when to use services, how to use services. Of course, you know when to use services, but how to use services and various piece and parcels of dependency injection in Angular. My name is Dhananjay Kumar. Uh, so the agenda of today is that we'll talk about all these things, that what are the various providing options, what is singleton service, pre-shakable service, what are the various providers options such as huge class, huge existing, huge factory. And then last but not least, we would see that how we can work with services in lazy loaded modules and what new feature got introduced in Angular 9, which really helps us to work with services in lazy loaded models. So that's the agenda for today. So to start with, dependency injection is a very popular pattern, and every application should have it. I have taken these 2 points from Angular official documentation. It says that dependencies are services or objects that a class needs to perform its function. And if you look at the Angular, everything is a class, whether it's a directive or whether it's a component or even a service. So when you need another class or object inside a component or inside a directive or inside a service, instead of creating object of that of yourself, you would be asking Angular to create object of that and give it to you. So that's the whole concept of dependency injection. If you have done even a smaller bit of Angular programming, you may remember that you do not create object of service yourself. You follow a certain syntax, and then Angular makes sure that you get reference of that. And we already know that the whole purpose of this lecture today is to understand that whether Angular gives us new object, whether Angular gives us existing object. When we follow a certain syntax, Angular is going to create new object, or Angular is going to reuse the existing object and all that. So this is the definition of dependency injection. You can learn more about it. One thing which I really like about dependency injection from the creator of dependency injection, Martin Fowler, and he's known as father of design patterns. And he says that saying an application is special because it supports dependency injection is like saying a car is special because it supports will. And keeping that in mind, I guess that by design, Angular supports dependency injection, and it has its own DI framework. If you're coming from .NET background or Java background, to work with DI, you need to install external libraries. However, in Angular, you do not have to do anything. By design, Angular supports dependency injection and the DI framework. All right. Before we move ahead, there are two keywords which I would like to bring to your attention. They are tree-shakable. What is tree-shakable? So tree-shakable has nothing to do with Angular. It's a generic computer engineering word. And it exactly means that in your application, whatever is not being used, so let us say you have created a JavaScript application. In that, there are 10 functions. Out of 10 functions, if 2 functions are not used inside the application, then those functions would not become the part of the final output bundle. That's what tree-shakable is. So tree-shaking refers to a compiler option that removes code from the final bundle if that the app does not reference that code. So this is the one keyword you should keep in mind, and we are going to use this keyword a lot. And this significantly reduces the size of your bundles. Second keyword is again a design pattern. Singleton services. Singleton services means only one instance of that service would be created. So that is called singleton services, and this is the second keyword we would be using a lot in today's webinar. All right. Now, to work with a service, there are 4 steps in Angular. You have to create a service, you have to provide the service, you got to inject a service, and then you can use the service. And we would follow all these 4 steps as we move forward. All right. Now, when I say the second step, that provide the service, what does it mean? Provide a service means you can provide a service either using providers array of a module or of a component, or you can use using the using the providers array or using the providing property of the injectable object, injectable decorator. So these are the two options: providers array and the providing property of injectable, and we are going to explore these two in detail. Now, there are four options for providing. They are root, any, module, and platform. In that, root, any, and platform became part of Angular in version 9, and root was there in version 6. And we would come to that, we would see that in detail. In the same way, you have four providers: use class, use existing, use factory, and use services, use value, and we are going to learn about them as well. So we have talked a lot. After this, we do not have any slide. We are going to learn everything through code. And again, just keep two things in mind: tree stackable and the other is singleton service. So brace yourself. We'll follow step by step everything, and I hope we'll learn a lot. So what I have done here, I have created an Angular application. That Angular application has so far, it has one service called log service, and then it has two components: child component and child2 component, and then we are using app child1 and app child2 right here. Okay. Right now, when you run this application, the application should look like this: child1 works, child2 works. So to start with, let us first go ahead and create the service. Here I have already created a service using nggs and service name. This is a Angular CLI command which helps you to generate a service. So I already ran this command and we have this service created. Now by default, if you look at this line number 4, what Angular does when you create a service using the CLI command, it sets this providing value to root for the service. Now providing equal to root means that service is supposed to be a singleton service, and that service is supposed to be a tree stackable service. You already know meaning of tree stackable means if this service, even if we have created this service, but if we are not using this service in our application, Angular is not going to keep it as the part of the final output bundle. Hence, the size of the application would be lesser. That is one characteristics if you are creating service with providing equal to root. And second is singleton, supposedly, but we would come to that later. All right. So here we have this service. Let us go ahead and modify this service with some code. So what I'm going to do in this, so here I have this service and I'm putting some code, and let me walk you through the code. I have created a static variable count in line number 9, and then in the constructor, I'm just increasing that value by 1, and then I'm printing that log service.count. So what actually I'm doing in this, that you know that the constructor gets called of a class each time an object gets created of that class. So if Angular is creating 5 objects of log service, this constructor would be called 5 times. All right, and this console.log should print us some value 5 times. If this Angular is creating only 1 object, then this constructor would be called only once, and we would have only 1 console.log. And just for that purpose, to demonstrate you that how many objects would get created, I have put this code. All right, so in the constructor, that it has very simple function, say hello, and it is returning hello name. Now to use it, what we got to do, let's go to our child component. So we have 2 child components. In the child component, just to use that, what I'll do here, I'm creating a property message in line number 10 is a string, and then here we are injecting it, and then we are using it in the right here, and this is child1, so let's call it child1. All right, and this is the way you actually use a service. That is your step number 3. If you go to our slide right here, in our slide, we talked about various steps, and you see that create a service, we created a service, then provide a service, that provide in equal to root, so we provided a service, and then inject the service, and you inject a service like this. That is the syntax. So when you follow this syntax, what actually you are telling Angular that, hey, whenever you create object of child component, can you get me object of log service? Roughly you can think like that, but we would come back to this story again. I repeat, when you put this code, it means you are instructing Angular that, hey, whenever you create object of child one component, can you get me one reference of log service? Now questions whether Angular will create new object or Angular will use existing object, from where Angular will read this information, etc. We'll come back to that. So create new object or existing object of log service and all. So we'd come back, we will be back to that. So but this is the syntax you follow to inject the service. All right. And then now in the HTML, let's go and just child1.component.html, and we'll just display that. In the same way, what I'm going to do, I'll take the same code and put it in child2 component as well. So in the child2.component.ts, right here, we are again putting this code and then putting the log service. All right. Let's pass it here child2 and then take it here from child1 component, and in the child2 component.html, we are just passing that. All right. We are just passing that. So here we are passing that message. So you see that we have child1 component message. It's just we are using that. Now let's go and run this application, and you see that we are getting hello child1, we are getting hello child2. So we are getting that output. We are those child1 component and child2 component is able to read the data from the service. Nothing fancy. I'm sure most of you already know it. But one thing, let's go here and press F12. And here in F12, you can see that right here, it shows that object one means the constructor of log service being called only once. If you look at here, and we discussed that, that whenever there is a constructor, this constructor would be called as many times Angular creates object of log service. Since it is, we have only one object, one printed, it means we can assume that Angular has created only one object, and that object is being used in the both both component, child1 and child2 components. So that is so here actually then we can say that by using provide in equal to root, it is creating a singleton service, means the same object is being used, and it is traceable as well. However, it is always traceable if it is set to the root, but it is not always singleton. And that would depend on the configuration. So for that, let's go to this child1 component. And in the component also, you can provide a service. And here, let me provide this log service. Now, when we provide this at the in the component level, now what is happening? We are providing the service once at the using provide in root here, and once in the child1 component also we are providing in using the log service. Now we are providing the service twice, and now if you look at the behavior, you see that you are getting the output as expected. However, Angular is creating two objects of your service. It means that it will create the number of objects as many times you provide it. And of course, whether Angular is going to use in this scenario, Angular will use object created due to these providers, or Angular will use create object created due to this provider, or it depend on other options which we are not going to covered today, but you can assume that if you have provided it here, means for this component and for all its child component, object created using this provider would be used. So here we saw that even if it says that it's a singleton service, actually it's not a singleton service. If you configure it, and here you saw that two objects got created. So I'll just take not more than 15 minutes. Very first, I'm very sorry for what happened. I exactly don't know. All it gone blank screen, and that was first from me as well. But never mind. Once again, whoever is in the presentation, thank you so much. And Nikita, that was a really great presentation from you. I really enjoyed, and you gave me a reason to go and explore portals. So what we are going to do, we are going to cut little bit of demo from my presentation, and we would focus on something about providers, which became a part of providers in version 9 of Angular. So far, we talked about that when we set providing to root, it means Angular is going to create a tree shakable and singleton service. Uh, Even though it looks like even though by definition that's singleton, but if you again provide that at the component level, Angular is going to create new object for that. We have seen that in demo. That was a demo number 1. In demo 2, we removed providing equal to root, and then what we did, we passed that into the providers, and the only difference between root and passing that in root model provider is that providing equal to root is tree shakable. However, providers is not tree shakable. Then if you look at this code right now in our code, in the app module.ts, you see that we are passing this log service, and this log service is nothing but actually shortcut of this. So provide log service and use class log service. All right, so this is nothing. So when you have the value for provide and use class same, instead of passing it as an object, you can just pass single value. That is one thing I would like to bring to your attention. Now, what we are going to do, as we discussed, that we have 4 types of providers: use class, use existing, use factory, and use value. We are skipping demos for others, but just to give you an overview, what exactly this line means. This line means that when you use this right here, that hey, give me log service. So this log service is actually the token name, not the class name, not the service name. And when you inject a service here, Angular goes and finds provider, in this case in the module. So for that log service token, Angular knows that, okay, for this log service, it has to use the object of this log service class. So once this is clear to you, now let us see that how we can bring all this together to work with lazy loaded modules. Like we have multiple modules and which are lazy loaded, and how we can provide service to them. But before that, let me ask you one question. Let us say in our application there is a main module, then there are 2 eagerly loaded modules, and let's say there are 2 lazy loaded modules. And this is the scenario: 1 main module, 2 eagerly loaded modules, and 2 lazy loaded modules. And we are using this log service, all right, in all these modules. Now we have not provided log service in anywhere in the component level or directive levels. Now question is, how many object of log service could get created? Whether Angular is going to create 2 to 4 and 5 objects, or it is going to create only 1 object, how Angular is going to create objects and all. And after this 10 minutes of demo, you would be able to answer this question on your fingertip. All right, and we are going to work with that log service itself. So before that, let us first go and add some. Before that, first let's go and add lazy loaded modules in our application. So here is our application right now. All right. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to add one module. So this is the Angular CLI command to add a module which will get added to main module in a lazy loaded manner. So this is the command here. I have executed it. And here Angular must have got created a customers module. And let's say that I need one more module. And right here, so I'm creating orders module. All right, and then let's run this application ng serve. And in meantime, what we are going to do in the app component right here on the app component.html, let's put one button to load the customer module, one button to load orders module, then there's home, and in this router outlet, those modules would get loaded. And then let's go to app routing module. So here in the app routing module, what we'll do, you see that Angular has already added this lazy loaded configuration to lazy load customers modules and orders module for you. And this is the syntax, import syntax that got added in Angular 8. And that is, if you follow that syntax, Angular will lazy load this particular module. And we have not written that code. That code got written by that Angular CLI command. And here what I'm doing, I'm just adding one more default path that if customers and orders is not meeting, then just go to this path. Once again, if you look at here, we are saying that base URL/customers, please load children from the customer module and then customer module. This is the syntax you got to follow. Even if you are lazy loading a component, you got to follow this import statement, or you can use async and await as well. All right, so here we are for configured a lazy loaded modules in our application, and let's go and run this. So here our application is successfully compiled, and refresh it. All right, here is so this is in the live, and I hope I added everything inside. Live, the customers, and then orders, and app route module. All right. And then we'll go to this here and say dir/ng serve. All right, so this will take some time to compile. And first we are lazy loading two modules, orders modules and customers module, and then we'll try to inject the service and see that how tree shaking and other works in the lazy loaded modules. So here application got compiled successfully, and here we have customers, orders, and home. All right, so I'm pressing F12. First, let's see that whether we are able to get this lazy loaded done or not. All right, you see that here many files got downloaded. Now, when you click on orders, you see order works here you are getting as output, and when you click on the orders, then this order.module.js is getting downloaded. When you click on the customers, then this customers.module.js getting downloaded, means we have configured lazy loaded successfully. All right, now we got to use this log service in lazy loaded module, and for that what I'm going to do very quickly, let's go to, let's say, customers and then customer component.cs, and to use that, just say the way you use in any other component here, message string, and we'll say lazy loaded, and this is customer, so we'll pass customer here. And also we will, in the customer component, we'll use message. All right, and then take the same code and let's go to orders component.ts and put it here, and here we'll say lazy loaded orders, and here is the log service. All right, and then customer component HTML, the same message we want to put in the order as well. All right, so now we are using that service, log service, in lazy loaded modules. And if you are back here, you see that orders, hello lazy loaded orders you are getting, hello lazy loaded customers you are getting, and there's only one object being created. Means the message what I'm trying to convey you here is to work with like even if a component is lazy loaded, you don't have to do anything extra. Just if you have injected a service into the into the root module level, that service would be available to even lazy loaded modules, and only one object would be shared across everywhere. So right now in the default scenario, doesn't matter how many modules are here, two eagerly loaded module, two lazy loaded modules. If you are providing log service, scenario one, if you are providing log service at the main module level or using the root, only one object would be shared, and here I'm assuming that you are not providing it again in any component of any of the modules. So this is your scenario number one, which you just saw, and we are getting the output. So again, you don't have to do anything extra. Now the challenge comes, let's take one scenario here, and the scenario is, what I'm going to do, and be with me to understand this demo. What I'm going to do in my application right here, let's say that I have a different API settings. So for that, I'm creating a API config.ts file. And in that, I'm saying that, okay, I have this interface API config, which has an endpoint and token. Now I need to provide different API config for different modules. That's our end objective. How we can do that? So for that, another thing which we'll do is right here, we'll say that API config.module.ts, and here we are creating a token to read that API config. So here we are saying that our token name is API config value, and it is returning us an injection token for API config. And we can use this API config using use value. Now we need, like we are using that log service in various modules. Our requirement is that for different modules, it should have different values for API config. But to use that, first we need to inject this API config value to the log service. So for that, let's go to log service.ts. And here to inject that, again, we'll go to the constructor and say inject. And we need to inject API config value. All right, and then we'll say private and give any name to that config. All right, so here we have injected that API config value, importing it. And now let's say that we have created one more function. That function from here does nothing but returns the config value from the API, from there, means it will return this particular object, endpoint and token. All right, now we have injected this. Now to use that, we have to pass that value, and we can pass that value in the application module level. So here right now in the app.module.ts, we can say that API config, and the value is, let's say, abc.com, and a token is this. And then what you need to do, you need to provide that. So to provide that, we'll use value. Here we'll say provide, and in the provide, the name would be API config value. All right, and then we'll say use value. Use value, and here you can pass the value which you just created on the top, config value. All right, so here we are creating the token API config value, and this is using this config value which we created here. And this API config value is injected to this log service, and this get value return the that configuration object. So we have now API and token at the application level, at the main module level, and wherever we want, we can use that. So for that, what we can do, we can let's say go to our API, go to our component here, for example, order component.ts, and let's say that here we are saying API value any, and then we can say right here that, hey, read me this dot API value log.get value. All right, and then you can display this in the HTML of orders.component.html like this. And same we can let's do that for customers. We are displaying that for customers as well, and we will do the same thing. We'll take API value any, and here we'll fetch that data. All right, so we are now fetching that API value for order and customers module, component of orders and component module which are readily loaded. Last but not least, let's just go for one child component and do that, such that we can see that how it is working for component which is part of the main module as well in the demo. And here the same code we are putting it for child component as well. And then we can go and modify child component template. We can modify child component template here as well. All right. So now at this point of time, we just created a API value and injected it and using it at 3 different places in 2 lazy loaded modules and 1 main module component. And if we run the application, you see that in the application right now, you go to orders, it is hello lazy loaded orders, but it has the same token, and even the component of main module has the same token. Now the customers, it is loading the customers, but it has the same token. So what is happening? Our objective is that we want different values for endpoint and token for customers, orders, and home. But at this point of time, we are not able to achieve that because we are passing that value into the main module level, which we are passing right here. And since we are passing it the main module level, the same object is being used, and hence the same value is being shared. And you can see that there's only one object created here, and that's why you cannot have separate value. But our objective is to get the separate value for different modules. And how you can do that? So to do that, what you need to do, of course, go to the separate modules here. Let's say that I'm in the order modules .ts, and here we'll create this API config for orders. All right, and then we can pass that in the providers array. So in the providers array, we can say, hey, provide, use this API config, and then use config value. All right, so we did setting for the, we did pass that value for the orders module. In the same way, let's go ahead and do that for, let's say, customers module. So in the customer module, it has its own token, and then we can, all right, and then we can again pass it for the customers module providers as well. All right, so here we are saying provide API config use value. So you see that we are passing different value now for the different modules. But if you look at the output, still it is not helping us. When you click on order, it is giving you same abc.com. When you click on customers, it is giving you same abc.com, and the same object is being used. So even if you are injecting the values for that API config value token in the module label, which are lazy loaded, you are not able to read different value for that. Now the solution, what is the solution of that? Solution of that is you can go here and say, okay, let me once again provide this log service to the to customer module, and in the same way, let me again provide this to log service to orders module. All right, you done that. So you are providing separately log service. Now you have provided log service thrice, means in the app module level and in both lazy loaded module. And now when you go and run this application, right now you should, on running the application, you should see that you have one object and then abc.com is there. Now when you do the customers got loaded, you are getting this customers separate token for separate value for customers, and but one more object got created and which is expected. And then when you click on orders, for orders you have different value, and the third object got created which is expected. And this is the way you solve this problem, and this is the way you achieve different values for different lazy loaded model. But the only challenge with this approach is, since you are passing that in the providers of the module, this log service is not recheckable. Now, even if application is not using it, Angular is going to keep it as a part of your final bundle. So how we can solve that? So to solve that, first we'll remove it from all the providers. We removed it from orders. Let's go and remove it from customers, as well as let us go and remove it from app module where we are using this provide. All right, so now we don't have at any provider array. It means, of course, Angular is going to give us error. It's saying that no provider for log service. The solution is we can go to log service right here, and here we can say providing and root. So when we are passing root, it means it's a singleton object would be used, and this is a tree shakeable now. However, we are back and run this again. You are getting the output, only one object getting created, but again, the same problem. You have the same value for lazy loaded modules as well. Now, how to solve that? So to solve that, you have already seen how to do that, which we did using by passing it to different to the modules providers. But in Angular 9, they have come up with a better solution such that your service is recheckable and still you can achieve different values. And you got to use, instead of root, any here. Just use any here. You don't have to do anything. And right now you are here. One object got created, orders, you have different value for orders, other object got created, customers, different value for customer, other object got created, and this is recheckable. So this is the purpose of any, which got added to Angular 9. The third option here is platform, which we are not going to cover today, but what platform does, it allows you to share this service across multiple Angular applications in a single browser tab. Probably I can create another video and put it on my channel for that. So now you understand that what is the purpose of any. First, I try to show you the problem. First, I try to show you that what was the earlier way of solving that problem, and then how any is solving that. So this is what I have for today, and I hope it added you now understand it. Last but not least, once again, that we had a demo on use class, but you can use class for real-time scenario like global error handling, interceptors, or service hierarchy, etc. And then we already covered about root and any. Root is recheckable, any is not recheckable, any is recheckable, and but if you use providers, those are not recheckable. And last but not least, if you go to this, now you know that if this is a scenario, and if you are using any, it means Angular is going to create one object for main module, and the same object will be used for the eagerly loaded module. So one object for these two, and two objects for two lazy loaded module, means it will create three objects altogether, and those objects would be three objects, and those will be recheckable. So that's it. Last 30 seconds of my, if you want to be in touch with me, My name is Dhananjay Kumar. I'm a Microsoft MVP. I'm a Google developer expert. I'm also founder of NG India, which is one of the largest Angular conference in the world, and Geek 97. We provide training and all. So you can connect me for any training need, consulting, if you have any speaking opportunity, content creation. And my email address is right there, debugmode@outlook.com. And you can read my blog at debugmode.net. Once again, sorry for some technical problems which happen in between. And thank you everyone for joining. And thank you, GDG Means team, for giving me this opportunity. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dizzy. It was a good talk with a lot of tough issues and electric dropouts and stuff like that, but we did it. And thanks a lot. You're a really good speaker. You finally make it, and I really appreciate it. Thanks for coming here. And let's just spend about 5 minutes for a couple of questions before we wrap up. Okay?
Sure.
So first of all, thanks for providing information about the providing anything. It's a new one in Angular 9. That's cool. So just a small question. What is the default value when you use just injectable attribute? If you don't use provide any?
Root.
Root. Default is still root. Okay, cool. We had a question in YouTube channel. I will just read it. So how we can resolve the cyclic dependencies? Which is the best approach for that in this area?
Okay, so today we did not cover that topic. That topic is entirely different topic, but Angular has given you various options like iterate self, iterate optional, and using those keywords, we can control the cyclic dependency.
Okay, thank you. I think we can just find more details about these keywords. Okay, I have just a personal question about that. So you showed a demo about that add inject, and I'm wondering what is different between add inject and just a regular dependency injection.
Oh no! So when you use huge value and so when you have to so when you create a service using a class using iterate injectable, then you don't have to inject it. You just pass into the constructor, and Angular would be able to understand that it has to inject it. But when we created that endpoint configuration, we did not create a class to represent that with injectable decorator. We created that as just an object, and to inject that, we created a token. So we had to manually tell that, hey, I'm injecting this token, and whenever this token is injected, can you read that value?
Okay, thank you so much. That makes a perfect sense. And probably the last question, which I'm interested, no, two. Give me a time for 2 questions. So first of all, we talk a lot about the tree shaking, and is it turned on by default in Angular 9, or we need to set up something for that?
Tree shaking?
Yeah.
So when you create a service using Angular CLI command, nggs and service name, by default, what would happen that your service will have, if you can see my screen, providing equal to root set.
Yep.
It means it is a tree shakeable service. So if you don't do anything, just create a service using Angular CLI command, by default that is tree shakeable.
Yeah. I mean, do you need to turn on something on global?
No, Angular will take care of that. Angular will take care of that.
Okay, cool. That's pretty cool. And the last one, I promise. So when you inject, when you use dependency injection on a component level, right? So is Angular taking care of the clearing of instances after the component was unloaded?
Good question. I suppose it should, because we are injecting it through the provider's array. It means we are not manually creating the object. Angular is creating object for us and passing it. It means it must be taking care of killing that object also once component and tree got killed.
Yeah, I'm asking because there is a famous issue when you subscribe to observables and not unsubscribe. So I wonder if there's the similar issues with dependency injection instances. So
So
pieces.
in the subscribe, we manually subscribe to that. So it's our responsibility to unsubscribe to that. And Angular tells you that if you don't want to go into subscribe and unsubscribe thing, use async pipe, and they internally take care of that. So in the same way, dependency injection is a default Angular thing. We are not creating object of ourselves. It means the Angular must be taking care of disposing the object as well.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. And I think we're done with the questions. We're done with this online meetup. This is thanks once again for the good presentation and a lot of live coding. It was tough and interesting. And thanks to all the audience who are here with us online supporting all that, or who will be watching later. Thanks, and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. See you soon.
Bye, guys.